Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi and welcome back to That Trippi Show. This week, there's a lot of joy going around. In Tim Walz's first rally with Kamala Harris since being chosen as VP, he thanked her for putting her trust in him, but he also said, quote, maybe more so, thank you for bringing back the joy, unquote. And I was thinking, yeah, Tim, you're right. The joy is back. And yes, this race is about contrast. And look at the other side, and there's a hell of a lot of hate. So why not everybody embrace the joy, reject the hate? I think it's that contrast of a team that connects and is having fun, and one that can't even, you don't really see them out there doing much except the same old, same old. So Alex, where should we get started, my friend?
Well, we got to start with Tim Walz, obviously, Kamala's VP pick. Joe, you led with that quote. And before we get too far down the line, I just want your initial reaction. And actually, at the top, you said embrace the joy, reject the hate. Why don't you get into that?
No, because I think that's what the country's waiting for. I mean, after all this time, the guy coming down the escalator, just the complete polarizing, hateful division. And I think he was able to make that work doing, when we were talking about, when everybody thought it was old versus old, Biden, there wasn't a whole lot of joy in that choice, right? Let's face it, there just wasn't. Even if many of us, among them, proud of the work that Biden did with, and supported him. But it wasn't a joyful choice. That's it, but this, what he did, and then we talked about this in when Biden decided to get out of the race, that he really had unleashed something. I mean, that this was maybe one of his most important acts in his that he's made in terms of defending democracy from Trump, and now you see it, and it really is. It's not old versus old. It's not even what I thought, it could be old Trump versus new generation, and that's certainly part of it. But it turns out the contrast that is going to define the race, I think, is joy versus hate. And which one do you want, folks? Which one does America want? I think that's a really powerful contrast that is going to make a bigger difference than any of the it's a bigger contrast even than old Trump versus new generation, right? It really sets up what kind of future you want, optimism, making politics fun again, not hateful. I think that's a really important thing that a lot of people may have missed. I know they're feeling the momentum and the joy, but I'm starting to think it's that contrast, too, that is starting to drive up the Harris-Walz ticket in terms of the polls that we're starting to see. But we'll see. There's plenty of time, a lot of work still to be done. But I really think that's it. Everybody embrace the joy, reject the hate. And I actually think talking to your friends about that might not be it's not a bad contrast that could really work for us.
This was, I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit, Joe, but we did get a bunch of reader questions this week, listener questions this week, and one of them was kind of along the lines of what do I tell my friends? And one of the things, and I think this is really just maybe kind of 2016 whiplash, but things seem to be going so well right now that people are texting me that they're worried about how well things appear. What advice do you have for them about just roll with it, embrace it?
Use that angst to do the work, but ride the wave of joy. I mean, it's use that energy and take it and seize it. And then you look over the other side, and it's Trump. His I guess I don't know. It's like a 2-hour press avail or something.
And we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, I know, but it's like the same old crap, polarizing, hateful, divisive, and no fun at all. I mean, anybody having fun watching that? The joy that Tim Walz spoke about is addictive, and we need to play into that.
So let's get back to Tim Walz. What does he bring to the ticket, Joe? Talk to me about that VP pick.
I mean, it's like you look, football coach, veteran, Midwestern, very moderate in Congress. He understands agriculture. And, a lot of ways he's the anti-JD Vance or JV Vance. He just connects with people, whereas JD Vance comes off as calculating, chameleon, and not authentic at all. I mean, I think the biggest thing that Walz brings to it is just how genuine and likable he really is. So that, I don't think there's any way that JD Vance can connect with people the way Walz does. So I think that, and again, you've kind of got two happy warriors running against two sour, negative, hateful. The country, we're in a third world country. There's no hope. It's all going. We're all going to be. It's an ugly, filthy country that's can't be brought back. Only we can do it. Versus, reality. Actually, one of the interesting things in a poll I saw today, again, I can't remember what the scale was, but on the high end, 75% scored their own economic future as good. But the country's future was 25. That's like there's a disconnect there still. People, because I think of the polarization, because of the way everything Trump says is bad, it's horrible, we're all, the liberals are destroying the world we live in, all that garbage. People deep down know they're doing pretty well. Not everybody, and we still have work to do, but I just think there's something there in that positive energy, that enthusiasm, that optimistic view of the future, given the dark, negative, rants of both Trump and J.D. Vance. And that's where I think Trump really missed it by picking. I mean, there's a lot of reasons he screwed up by picking J.D. Vance, but among them is the guy is, by just sort of doubling down on everything Trump does, it just infects them with that same negative, everything is wrong messaging that I don't think helps them at all. Tim Walz is the opposite of all that. So I think that's a really important thing. I mean, you look at all the stories and the memes that are coming out about him. Even people. I don't really think anybody's very interested on who will play J.D. Vance on, at SNL, at Saturday Night Live. But my point is, people are arguing about it. People are, online talking about it. I don't really see a whole lot of that kind of stuff, being talked about J.D. Vance, or any excitement or even thought about who it might be, or even caring about it. And then, these stories that I know you've told me a couple. Maybe you want to get into them.
When he was a new teacher, he got pranked, and his fellow teachers printed out a gift certificate. He was a teacher when you could still print out gift certificates, by the way. Printed gift certificate for a new turkey. And they sent him to a grocery store with it, and everyone's going to laugh at him. And he came back with a new turkey that he got for free. And everyone was like, yeah that's the kind of guy he is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's just so likable and so approachable and so authentic. That's where I think they're crazy to try to make him the evil, pedophile,
and it's
whatever
such
crap
a
they're going to do.
Wholesome joy too,
yeah.
Right? It's like
right.
It's like, I mean, he tweeted there's a tweet going around to him sitting his teenage daughter down and literally talking about the importance of good stereo cables. There's one oh, Tim Walz stopped me in my driveway and said that my treads on my tires were worn. It's I was trying to figure out a way to describe this, and I came up with dad joy. And it's just that you laugh at your dad for making the joke, but you can't help but laugh too. And you can see it makes him so happy. So it's impossible to not also be happy about it.
Right. And then you look at the contrast. J.D. Vance attacking childless cat ladies, attacking Walz's military service, hateful punchline after hateful punchline. I mean, it's that's what I'm saying. It's like this the ugly face of Trumpism personified between the two, with the two of them amplifying each other, and the strong positives of middle America. I mean, of someone, who these two people were born 6 months apart, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, 6 months apart, in completely different backgrounds. I mean, completely, but having come up through hard knocks to get to where they are, it's an amazing thing that both of them are on a ticket now to be president and vice president of the United States. That is what America is about, and you can see them taking so much joy in that, and are so grateful for the opportunity. And so I just think that's one of the reasons I think that you're seeing Kamala getting these crowds. I mean, and why Trump is nowhere to be seen. I mean, he's just. They sort of supplanted. I mean, we talked about this, I think, last week. Trump, since he came down that escalator, became kind of like the magnet for popular culture, for the popular cultural discussion debate. And I mean, I don't mean that in a positive way. Just whatever we were talking about in the popular culture all revolved around crap Trump said, or oh my God, Trump did, or his people, or actions that he took. But he dominated it until Biden passed the torch. And I think Kamala, from the very beginning, from that first moment, you saw it with the memes that popped out on Brat, just. You could just see the popular cultural conversation change to something other than Trump, and not only other than him, but subordinate him to it and lift it up, someone stronger. I mean, who's now controlling that conversation. And Waltz adds to that. You can see people, the way it's catching with him too. So no, yeah, I just think there is a lot of joy in all of this, and again, embrace that joy, and get your friends to reject the hate. And I think that's sort of the thing we need to start to do.
I'll be the downer for just a minute, because we did get a couple of listener questions. I'm gonna hold their names off on this just because I think I know where you're gonna go. Joe, are you worried that Tim Walz is just Tim Kaine 2.0?
No, I think, I just think his story is so different from your usual rise, football coach, the 24 years in the Army National Guard, the hunter, ice fishing. I mean, people are gonna see him, pictures of this guy ice fishing, but they're going to try to turn him into some kind of, crazy whacked out commie. It's just not going to work. I'd put it this way. I'm trying to find a polite way of saying this. I don't think the Kaine had a whole lot to do with why we didn't win the White House. Yeah. Okay. I think there was someone else on the ticket, and we can all, whether fair or not, that's not Kamala Harris, is what I'm saying. I think Kamala Harris is in a much stronger position versus Trump than that ticket was in 2016, when no one really knew what was coming. People didn't believe it was possible. It thought the candidacy was a joke. There's no one thinking that way right now. And I also don't think that that campaign could have been a joyous one. Against the hate. I think this one is, and will be, and that may be a big part of the difference.
Well, and the other big thing, and this gets us into our next topic, but the other thing in 2016 is also a very different Trump, and especially a very different Trump, 8 years removed. Today was one of the wilder days, and I know we talked last week. I think our topic last week was this Trump's worst week ever. He has not dug himself out. After sitting around for a week, probably I would not want to be his. I wouldn't want to be his campaign manager anyway, but I would not want to be his campaign manager the last week. He was sitting there watching his handpicked or their handpicked vice presidential pick follow Kamala Harris around, really to no avail.
Yeah,
Wasn't getting traction.
like,
No
yeah,
crowds, which is very important to him.
yeah, it's crazy. No crowds, trying to what, troll her plane. I don't, what was he doing? It
So
was like
confusing.
ridiculous. Yeah. But look, the thing, and of course, so Trump today, and that, or as you're hearing this, it would be yesterday. But Trump in his press avail or whatever the hell that thing was, where they covered it on ad nauseum. But he spent,
Which was great.
yeah, and he spent massive amounts of time talking about crowd size. I mean, literally, we're back to like the very first moment of his presidency when claiming that he has the greatest crowds ever and no one's reporting about it, was a huge part of his message today, on that thing. It's just, so it's clearly getting to him. He's clearly bothered by the crowd size thing. But I just think that's going to get worse, because I don't see how they could have the greatest advanced teams with all the money in the world, and how they're going to turn out people to watch J.D. Vance is beyond me.
But they also don't have all the money in the world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true
especially
too.
now. I mean, they raised Kamala and Tim raised another 40 something the day Tim Walz was announced. Kamala raised 300 plus in her first couple of days, and it came to us. This is a pretty credibly sourced rumor that there are almost no Trump for president field offices. Historically, by the way, there are different ways a presidential campaign can do that, right? They can have state parties, they can have the national party, they can punt it like DeSantis would and just hope for an IE. Never a good
Yeah.
idea. But you can pull the Obama model and hire 5,500 organizers, especially in swing states, which I know you and I know well. But the the Trump campaign has almost nothing, and they gutted the
Well,
RNC. There's no one at the RNC who knows how to run a presidential field operation right now.
it's also too late. I mean, that's one of those things where you could, write a $200 million check to start building that organization. But if it's not there, in other words, you don't. It takes a couple of weeks to get the headquarters open, right?
Well,
It
and to
takes a
build the
couple of weeks to get
relationships with the
and
volunteers.
to get the volunteers and stuff. They cannot catch up. I mean, I'm not saying they can't build something, but they cannot. There's no way they can catch up to what the Biden campaign had built, and now Kamala has and can add to. So that's not going to happen at all. And the other thing, though, it's I remember in the old days when everybody was blown away because, I think that in the Dean campaign we had 650,000 contributors. We were the first ones out there trying to do that online and get people to chip in and contribute. And I can't remember, but I mean we broke Bill Clinton's record for raising money in a quarter. And then you get to Barack Obama, who had 3 million Americans contribute $500 million. And I remember the world being amazed by that. Like, I mean, oh my gosh, that's amazing. 3 million Americans gave him $500 million. And he obviously went on to be president. But at the time, I thought, that is so ridiculously small a number. I mean, if you think about it, there's 300 million plus Americans. 3 million of them chipping in to help Barack Obama become president is great, but it's 3 million. I mean, it's like not 1% of the American people. I think that Kamala is going to surpass that. Again, in other words, the question I would have is, are there 6 million Americans, not 3, that think, hey, saving democracy and this ticket and what they represent to the future, hell yeah. If the American people understood, hey, $10, $25 could really make a massive difference. If 6 million of us stepped up to the plate and chipped in, and I think that is starting to sink in with people. I mean, obviously it already has, as you said, 300 million in a week, 42 million with Tim's entry as VP nominee, and it's something that I think is going to happen. I mean, I think we're going to be shocked at the response that continues for this ticket. Not just for the money, not just the low dollar contributors coming in, but also the level of volunteers, the door knockers, and playing in to a massive organization that's already been built and is working in these states. They're going to get a flood of new, and we've seen this already, tens of thousands in some of these states of people excited and volunteering. And I think that energy is going to overpower this dark, just dark doomsaying campaign of Trump, JD.
I want to get to some more positive national stuff. I can't get away from how totally nuts this press thing was today. He called it himself. Yeah. I guarantee you he did not talk to, or he definitely didn't listen to anybody about what he had to say. I mean he was ranting and rambling. I mean, this was like, at one point he kind of just cut into his own sentence and said, Kim Jong-un liked me a lot. He doesn't like this group, talking about Biden Harris.
Right.
Like, somehow he thinks people think that's a good thing, right? He said something along the lines of that heavily implied he wanted to run against Biden, and he's now complaining that he has to run against Kamala Harris. The weird thing was abortion.
Yeah. On the Florida abortion referendum, that he will announce, what's his position? I'll announce that. I'm going to have a press conference on that, so I don't want to tell you now.
At his press conference.
Yeah, it's a press conference. We're holding a press conference, but to tell you things, and you're asking me the question of how I'm going to vote, or how do I support the Florida's abortion referendum. Well, the 6-week ban down there is because of Roe v. Wade being overturned, because of the 3 judges he appointed, and because DeSantis, who's with him, signed a 6-week ban. So the people of Florida went and put something that would codify Roe v. Wade on the ballot, and he's just, I don't know. I'll announce that. I'm going to have a press conference on that.
But then he said,
I don't want to tell you.
But then he said, quote, everyone likes the abortion laws now, even the liberals and the Democrats.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure this is where, like, when he's talking, it's such a good thing. He said, the baby is born and the doctor and mother decide what to do with it, whether to kill it. And then he immediately is like, well, abortion won't be a big issue this year.
It won't be a big issue. And they went into the whole, after the baby's born, they decide what to do. The doctor takes it away and kills it. And I mean, like, and I do think, like, where, like, on what planet does that happen? But anyway, he is, I thought one of the crazier moments was when, when asked about the January 6th speech, that no one has spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, we had more. What is he thinking? I do not understand, like, this fixation with having larger crowds than Martin Luther King. Are you out of your mind? I mean, and of course he is, but it's just amazing. Again, go back to the very first day of his presidency. We're still there, folks. We're not talking about the election lies in January 6th yet. I'm just saying it's just incredible. But look, the map, part of this joy thing is take a lot of joy in the map is expanding, friends. Yeah, we're still going to fight that blue wall. We got to win it. But I also think the pick of Walz meant look, they did a ton of polling and a ton of groups and a ton of dial tests and everything. And if they thought they needed Shapiro or Kelly to win Arizona or Pennsylvania, and that was all, the big decision thing, that they couldn't do it. No, they would have picked them. But the fact that they didn't says to me, again, there's just an overwhelming confidence that Walz helps expand even beyond. So he's not a one state, somebody who helps you in one place. He's somebody, I think, who is going to really make a difference with just the people, just coach on its own. I think reaches more people. He doesn't, and he speaks real English, not Paul speak. And I think if you look at the other possibilities, they're more polished politicians, not as authentic as this guy is. And I think that's going to make a huge, huge difference. And I think that map expands now. And I think if you look at Georgia, North Carolina, it's not just the blue wall states now. We have some real choices, some real places that we can play. And you're starting to see some polling coming out that says that that's for real, that we're seeing this ticket take leads in a number of these of the battleground states beyond the blue wall.
And we'll get into that next week because we're just about out of time. By the way, of course, and I think this is just our fault again, while we were recording, some more news broke. Trump is back into the ABC debate. He did accept that he will be debating Kamala Harris. I think he got the date wrong when he talked about it, which no one's going to mention, but like those kind of gaffes would be talked about for a week if it were Joe Biden. But he will be debating. And I leave you with one last listener question, Joe. How is the Trump campaign fully unprepared for this Harris campaign? And I would include Tim Walz in that. How could they get caught so flat-footed? And it's been weeks now.
They spent the entire time, as I said, sort of setting up old versus old, and thought, and mostly strong versus weak, and basically built an entire campaign trying to make Biden's physical appearance, his physical slow walk, those kind of things, any stumbles on the stump, make those all weak. The weakness, that just shows you my strength versus his weakness. Everything was built for that and when you look at their convention, the doubling down with J.D. Vance, the euphoria, the interviews talking about how they're going to win 370 electoral votes. They believed it. They believed they were on the march, and that this grand strategy that they had built for 2 years, demonizing and creating the memes out there and amplifying any sign of Biden, who 81 years old, is old, and they turned that into a massive weakness. But they never thought about how that was going to boomerang on them when all of a sudden Donald Trump is the oldest person ever. If he takes office, he will on his first day be the oldest president to ever take office. That he is himself not, he in comparison, maybe on a physical thing, he could get by as a comparison to Biden, but that doesn't work for him against Kamala Harris. Nothing that they were thinking and prepared for got them ready for that change. And then on top of it, like I said, they believed that he would be the dominant popular culture conversation, own the conversation, drive the conversation that he always was since the day he came down that escalator. And suddenly, and of course he would be against Biden. Anything he said, again, everybody be hanging on it, and they'd be able to keep pointing at anything Biden, any falters or anything. The press would have totally gone down that road with him. Instead, they woke up having this huge miscalculation or misunderstanding of reality and how fast it could change. And it's not only that they got that wrong, but they're not the cultural conversation anymore. The pop culture, it's really easy, by the way, dominating the pop culture if you're 78 against an 81-year-old. You can go to UFC events and and things like that and do and talk about cryptocurrency and against Biden. You can't now. It's the other way around. In fact, by the way, and you can ridicule when you own the popular culture conversation, when you control it, when you run it. You can ridicule the other side because people will hang on, the press will cover that. It's now the opposite. I mean, literally, they are now waking up and realizing, no, you're no longer the center of the conversation. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are. And not only that, the memes ridicule you now.
Right.
They are making fun of you, Donald Trump, and you, J.D. Vance, and you had all these MAGA people that were, would pick up memes and drive them at Joe Biden, and they get picked up in the popular culture and everything. Yeah, but that's no longer the case. I'm sure the MAGA folks are still out there, pushing his crap, but I'm saying no. That a whole bunch of Americans woke up and said, "Hey, this is fun. This is for real." And we're talking about her. And by the way, we haven't even scratched the surface yet of whether it's Taylor Swift or other people that can keep driving this. We're just at the beginning stages of it. And I think they are just to have no idea how to fight this, no clue. And I think it's going to, I really believe and have believed, I believe that Biden would get back most of the base and win a close race. She's already consolidated a whole lot of the base, and I think that's part of this surge. But I don't think it's stopping here. I think I really do expect this, if we do all the work and we do what we need to do, to be a much bigger win than we could possibly imagine today. The House is in deep trouble for them. Even the Senate races the Senate races were always looked good. Most of them were running way ahead of Biden. With Kamala, there's I don't know. We'll see how those turn out. But so far, the first ones I'm looking at, the first polls I'm looking at, it's looking even better. So no, I think the energy is going to make a big difference here. They just have no way to fight this right now. And that's why they're stumbling all over the place. I mean, that's why, J.D. Vance, I don't know, they pulled him off the road today. Even I think Trump canceled his event too. So, I think they've got to be really rethinking this. And I'm sure Trump regrets picking J.D. Vance now. I'm positive. I'm sure Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles did not have the best week and are going to have a really lousy next 3 months.
Oh, man, that's such a bummer. Joe, that's all the time we've got today.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks, everyone, for listening to That Trippi Show. This podcast will always be free with support from our advertisers and is part of Resolute Square. So check out the latest at resolutesquare.com/Trippi. Please subscribe to That Trippi Show and leave a review on Apple or wherever you listen. Also, if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, please like and subscribe to get alerts when we post the next episode. You can always send us a question to thattrippishow@gmail.com or leave us a question and review on iTunes. I will be we'll continue to have these shows on schedule. But one of them will probably be coming from the convention in Chicago, where maybe Alex and I will be in the same place. And so stay tuned for that. See you next week.
Resolute Square.